that's it. And we are back. Unfortunately, Grant got stuck somewhere.
We are back. Grant had some admin to take care of. I think he's still trying to recover from a few days in Dubai. We were obviously in Dubai for East Dubai. Lots happening. People fleeing America, wanting to relocate to a more crypto-friendly space, it seems. No, seriously, that's what's going on at the moment. Met quite a lot of people who are looking at buying, renting, and moving their operations to Dubai. It's quite a thing. Quite surprising, really, but it seems to be moving really fast.
Yeah, especially with the heat and the weather there, it's absolutely bonkers.
Well, how's this? I mean, so the way that, summer it gets like 45 to 50 degrees there. So the way that guys operate is that they wake up at 4 in the afternoon, they have breakfast, and then they start their day, and then they work through the night, and then, then they sleep during the day, because it just gets, apparently in summer, it just gets completely like unbearable, as you can imagine. And that's how people operate in that space. Definitely not for me. I like open spaces and touching grass way too much. But if you are building and if you are in the space, I can see the appeal. I mean, it's a happening place. It really is. There's lots going on. And from a technology perspective, definitely pushing the envelope. So, big news, Arbitrum.
I was about to say, more importantly, Arbitrum Airdrop has come in, and all I could think about when I saw that video was like, on Call of Duty, it's like, where are we dropping, boys? And then you've got like, care package incoming. You've just hit the 4 kill streak, and it's like, enemy care package incoming. Let's go. I am super stoked, super buzzing, because it has now just made crypto fun again. Because you know what, like, I didn't think it was real at one point. I
definitely didn't think it was real. I went on record saying it's not going to happen. These guys aren't going to do it. I'm glad I was wrong.
Andrew, if you're watching, mate, I'm really sorry, but I became a disbeliever at one point. But I am now a complete believer with your little CGI cinematic that almost looked like something out of a Michael Bay Transformers movie. It was amazing. So whoever your video and marketing team is, crack on, mate. Great. I'm super stoked. What's your thoughts?
Cool. I think it's I think it's like my reservations around it are people obviously farmed it quite substantially. I think they try to prevent that kind of thing, but obviously, a lot of guys are going to do really well with it. So, as usual, big whale wallets. I think it's inevitable. I just need to accept that that's what's going to happen. And that's my only concern, really. I think the other thing is kind of like from a governance perspective, how do the tokenomics look for the long term, for the health of the ecosystem, from a treasury perspective and the governance around that. That I'm big on governance. I think it's really important that, crypto gets that aspect of things right, because, if we're going to be replacing, this whole idea of governments and, the fact that they run as inefficiently as they do, what do we replace it with? We can't have more of the same. And I think governance is super important. And, that's something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But yeah, I think overall it's great. At the end of the day, you can't complain when there's free money on the table. Well, it's not really free money. I think if you've got an airdrop, you've put the time in, you've actually earned it. In many ways, you have earned it, and it's going to really be interesting to see how it plays out.
There's one category that I think should definitely be included. You obviously had like providing liquidity, making trades, making like going bridging over, but there definitely should have been a thing for like rug pulls as well. Like there's definitely got to be a way you can track that, and then to get some airdrop. But before we go too much into the Arbitrum, we'll give you a quick recap of what we're going to go over on the show today. We'll talk about Viva la Crypto from the newsletter. We'll obviously go over Arbitrum quite extensively because it is the hot topic, and there are some very good threads out there, and I've made a post saying, you know, the Arbitrum threaders are coming, and they have come out in full storm, which is always nice to see. I will take a little look at Nansen behind the scenes, and then there's a few things we need to do. Definitely talk about of what's going on in the real world. As I don't know if you saw the chart, but like the Fed balance sheet has just mooned, like it's just gone absolutely bonkers. And these are things that we do all just generally like need to pay attention to in amongst all of the FOMO that's going on. Have a look at some charts, maybe some sugar coins as well. And then yeah,
cool, sounds good.
Happy day. And then then for all of our Irish followers out there, because we clearly have a lot of Irish out there following us, happy St. Paddy's Day. I'm going whiskey tasting tonight, and I'm going to love it.
Nice, enjoy. I'm just kind of enjoying being back home after being away for the week. So definitely going to take it easy. I think the big thing at the moment is, you know, obviously what's happening with the banks. You know, obviously don't know like enough about it to kind of give a running commentary. Maybe next week we can get the macro boys in. I know that Ben and Noah did a show yesterday, which should be going live quite soon, and I think they get into it. I think the big thing in terms of what you mentioned is the balance sheet aspect of things. Please tell us about that.
Well, it's Viva la Crypto. Bitcoin definitely beat the banks at the weekend. And I think like Satoshi's vision is slowly coming true. But it's a double-edged sword. Like we kind of like do need as much as people want to preach about cryptos, you know, the end game. When you do look at it, you kind of need the banks, because if the banks shut down and all of your money is stuck in your MetaMask, in your Google Chrome, you then essentially become a Google Chrome bajillionaire. And if you can't off-ramp your money, you're buggered, right? But this was quite a nice little light-hearted newsletter. And we were just talking about 3 ways in which Bitcoin actually beat the banks. But we've got to take into account that things like Signature Bank going down is not a good thing. Silvergate coming down, not a good thing. SVB coming down, not a good thing. Credit Suisse as well, getting like TKO'd, again, it's not a good thing. And Jim Cramer once again called the top on not just Silicon Valley Bank, but he's also recently called the top on Ryan Reynolds' career, which I am sad to say because I enjoyed Deadpool 1 and 2. How did Bitcoin beat the banks? Well, the central banks undermine confidence of the consumer, investors, and depositors. Obviously, Bitcoin is predictable. They made blocks. Maxi still got pissed off for just being Maxis, and then it just works. Blockchain just works. It's fun, it's memeable, and it's cool to talk about. We go into a lot of depth into that. We break down some of the hot news, like Cathie Wood's new crypto fund. Gensler is clasping at straws again. But yeah, you know, tune in. There's loads of updates coming on from new launches. The one thing that did get missed was Ethereum went on Gorelli, and it was a success. There's no errors, there's no nothing, and it is coming soon. It was Tim, one of the ETH devs, dropped the date. I believe it was the 12th of April that we're going to get withdrawals.
Is this for Shanghai?
Yes.
Yeah, so Shanghai is on course. You know, there's a couple of doomers out there that reckon that Ethereum is going to go to 0. I don't think so. I think there's way too much relevance in the space at the moment, and I think there will be a sell-off to some degree, but I don't think medium to long term it's going to be a problem. Guys must sell. Guys must make some money. It's why Ethereum has been so successful, is that people have made money all along the way, and they must continue doing so. And if we get to buy Ethereum a little bit cheaper, then that's great. We need this kind of stuff.
We'll get into a couple of charts later, and we'll get into like the Bitcoin dominance, because the Bitcoin dominance chart is mooning. And we'll have a look at the RSI in a little while. But every time it has touched the line here, it has bonked down, signaling a face-ripping altcoin rally. Now, I want Bitcoin to keep doing its thing right now, because the more it does its thing, the lower the altcoins in theory should go, in order to then like have an absolute full send. But we break down everything in the newsletter. Go subscribe. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, and when we do get 5,000 subscribers, we're going to be creating some epic swag, and we'll be giving it away to one lucky winner who refers their friends to the newsletter, which you can do by signing up. Click the refer button. Rock and roll.
Cool. I think the big thing for me and going into next week is, how does the market essentially absorb all of this bank debt that's coming to the fore? Obviously, interest rates aren't going to stop. Like I said, I'd like to get Noah and Ben on and kind of look into that. I think maybe from a little bit of like from a doomer's perspective, I think a lot of the macro guys land up being quite doom and gloomy, but it keeps us, in check in terms of like watching, Bitcoin reacting really well to the market at the moment. A number of us have said it quite extensively over the last week, is that, if there was ever a time for Bitcoin to step forward, now's the time. Like, where do you actually want to have your money? And, what role does Bitcoin fulfill going forward? I mean, banks essentially are getting bailed out at the moment. And in many ways, what other option is there? Do you let all the people who have their money deposited in banks go under, or do you actually try and help them? You see, this is the thing. And people need to realize that maybe their money needs to be somewhere else. So let's see what happens over the course of next week. I think obviously with Credit Suisse, they're essentially, they've got a $1 trillion company. I mean, that's the value of that company right now.
It's huge, and they've just got the Swiss bank to like bail them out. I think there's also like talks of UBS actually buying them out as well, and then they'll use their like client base for their own, which is quite interesting. And what is crazy, you can obviously see like how that pumped. There's another.
So what is that? Why is the balance sheet gone up significantly? What's going on there? Is this them sending a bank transfer over to the banks? What's going on there?
Basically, so US has borrowed like 164 billion from the Federal Reserve over the past week, and then that's essentially there to like backstop everything that's been happening, because if those banks continue to crash, it will create even more fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But what's really interesting is they released that service called Fed Now, which in the UK we have TV Now, which gives you epic TV at low cost prices. But they released Fed Now, and essentially what it's going to do, it's going to allow instant transfers from like banks to clients to consumers to whoever else is on their books. And so I can't remember who it was, but they made a really interesting tweet. I'm like, they say, could you imagine a bank run that is done instantaneously? Because the bank run right now is obviously going to take some time. But could you imagine, like, you're there on your phone, you hear some FUD going on, and you literally just transfer $1 bajillion out as fast as you do in crypto? How mental is that? That will take down the economy.
Literally, yes.
Literally. Literally. But let's get on to the fun stuff, man. It's Arbitrium season. Arbitrium, when? Now. They're doing it the day after the FOMC. So I am hoping that we get some good results on the FOMC, so that when the Arbitrum Airdrop comes in, everybody's like chilling and they just go straight max bidding like the Saudis.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously this is great for the space. I want to know what's going to happen once this thing launches. Is it going to be a sell, or is it going to be a buy? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's really, really hard to call. I think there is so many like Arbitrum maxis out there that it will be okay. Obviously, it's going to dump like straight away to begin with, but I think it will be a dump and pump where people will really catch the bid on the way down on the first bit, and then I think it will just think you might see like Arbutrium versus OP play out. So what I'd actually I'd love to see over this weekend, the optimistic crew absolutely pump their chart. So then when Arbutrium does launch, Arbutrium has to like at least get to $3. At least get to $3 because they can't be losing to Optimism. I think that will be just devastating. And then it'll be interesting to see how things like the allocation to DAOs go, which DAOs actually get allocation, but then also how they're gonna curate value out of the actual Arbitrum token for not just the ecosystem as a whole, but for me as an average size investor with my peanuts that are over in Arbitrum at the moment. I'd really like to see how they do that.
I think it's going to do. I agree with you. I think there's going to be an initial sell-off. Bids caught. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to be impossible to call a bottom on what this thing does. I think it could even, pump and sell off a number of times. But I think over time it's going to just gradually go up. That's what I think. I mean, there's just too much going on. I think there's too much relevance in Arbitrum for it to just, be a continuous sell-off.
Yeah, same. And what I found really funny was Shitcoin Surfer, and this is kind of like putting a little sticker at the threaders. So too much people with long threads trying to explain their perspective on the Arbitrum airdrop. I don't care about the text. Please fill in the following: entry, stop loss, and target. Now, we all know DigitsDao and Digit Capital and the dude behind it. He does make some good trades. The guy's a wicked trader. He's made like 7++ figures on wallets that people actually actively know. So he's like, my entry on Juno Analytics claim percentage. So how much percent of the airdrop is claimed, plus dump and consolidation. I like Dalai Lama pattern, which if you're not sure, it's that whole like Wiz Khalifa, like boom, boom. Stop loss below the consolidation, or if it looks like a yep, you can read that. I'm not going to say that. This is still a kids show, ladies and gentlemen. And then target when funding neutralizes if we are short squeezing, and then price looks exhausted. Obviously, this is not financial advice. Do your own research. This is just good luck. But what do you think? How are you going to play it?
I'm just going to hold it. I mean, I don't have substantial, so I'm just going to hold it. It's not going to make a big difference to me either way. I really think there's tremendous value in Arbitrum, and I think it will be recognized over a period of time. So it will be one of my longer term holds. That's my perspective. I mean, obviously plans change, but that's my plan for the moment.
Yeah, same.
I think at the end.
I was gonna say, like, I did hear a few rumors that there is one way you can still become eligible for the airdrop. Do you want me to tell you how?
Please, I'd love to know.
You do a coffee run for Andrew Saunders and the team.
I think it would be more than a coffee run. It would have to be a chocolate eclair run of sorts, maybe some carrot cake. You know I love carrot cake, didn't you? How did you guess? You know I absolutely love carrot cake. There is no chance for a airdrop. If you didn't get one, you will not get one. The ship has sailed. Now you need to go and buy tokens if you want them. So the launch is in 6 days, 5 days. Is that right?
It is 6 days. So it's on the 23rd of this month. FOMC 22nd. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
The Bitcoin bulls, just to change the subject a little bit, the Bitcoin bulls spoke about 30 to 31K. I think a lot of people didn't believe that it was possible. Right now we're at 26,000. It really does seem like it can happen. Then we like 50% of the highs pretty much. Do we then go back to 22, or do we keep going up? I think we keep going up if this whole bank story continues. Clearly the market is reacting very positively to that bad news. I mean, I know that's really, really just crazy by the sounds of it, but if it carries on, which I think it will, I mean, interest rates aren't going anywhere. I think Jay Powell is definitely in a bit of a rock and a hard place situation right now.
Mate, he is fluffed up massively because what he actually done was all of these banks bought treasury bonds at like a really low interest rate. I think it's like 1.79 or something ridiculous. As he continued to increase the rates to try and push all of America into unemployment, he's actually gone the other way and he's destroyed the banking system. But this Bitcoin chart was one that I've featured in the newsletter a couple of times. And it's really interesting to see, like, if we're actually going to get up here. I've got a few other charts charted as well for Bitcoin, but we bonked here once, obviously failed, bonked here twice, failed, and then like as if by magic, we've like bonked here, and we have literally, we've obviously, whoops, oh, how do you do that? We've obviously like wicked to get rid of, you know, some of the to liquidate people, come back down, and then we have gone up. And then by the laws of like green swooshes and
green swooshes,
never fade the green swoosh, bro. We come down, which is this bit, up, bounce, and boof. Like my target, like if we're really bullish and like the macro just all of a sudden just looks amazing, then by the law of charting and technical analysis and swooshes, we should be able to get up to like the 31k mark. But I know a lot of people, and I've got it, it's another chart somewhere, but like the 28k mark, this is one. Yeah, so this is the actual one I use. So this 28k mark here is what people are going to be looking at for like that first liquidity run. But it's super interesting, man. What's your thoughts on Bitcoin now?
Like I said, I think the real narrative, well, the narrative that I'm perceiving, and I think it's the real one, is that people are seeking refuge in Bitcoin because of what's happening on the banking side of things. There is no real other logical explanation as to why Bitcoin is doing what it's doing. It reacted immediately after the Silicon Valley Bank news, and then the closure. It even reacted even more positively. There was, I think on Tuesday, I think there was kind of like a little bit of a retrace on things, and then we were like, okay, well, are we once again, you know, coupled to what's going on with TradFi? I mean, we have been for over a year now, and are we going to see more of the same? And then going into Wednesday, it looked like it was, and then yesterday it started going anti, you know, what was happening in the market. And I think if there can be a solid decoupling from traditional finance around this whole banking thing, then I think Bitcoin goes to 31k quite quickly. And then the real test will be at that 31, 32k as per your chart. Because that's that major point of resistance. I mean, that 32k has been there. 30 to 32k has been there since over a year ago. We've seen it being tested. Remember those giant wicks going into 29k. I mean, it was a big moment for us when we had the May crash last year, and that's going to be huge. But the only thing that I think pushes us through that is this banking crisis. I don't think anything else will do it.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's fascinating. It really is. Like, that really looks like it's potentially cup and handle.
Yeah, I think, listen, from a charting perspective, it all looks good. From the way the macro scenario is playing out with the banks, once again, we've said it. This is why Bitcoin was created, for this very moment. And if it was ever going to do something that was going to prove that point, this is that moment right now.
I agree. I completely agree. And what we'll have to look at for in the future is, so the reason this is highlighted on like the weekly, so this is what we call like a green vector candle, where there is like essentially like an abnormal amount of volume that's likely been pushed up by market makers. And if you look at whenever there has been either a red, so red and pink is like being pushed down, like max dumping. Green and blue will be pumping. So we've recovered this one here. You can see from back in June, we've recovered this here. Now in the future, like let's get the old pen out, do some like TA because it always makes sense. If we come up here, maybe capture some liquidity at 35, there might be a chance that we do reclaim this area before any kind of slow moving up, because that is a huge imbalance, which is why, no like FUD or whatever, I've marked off, oh shit, excuse my French, sorry, these ones over here, because these are in theory vector candles that actually haven't been reclaimed. Now, I'm not saying we are going to go down to like 11K or like 14K or whatever, but it's always just worth, wow, look at that TA swoosh. It's always worth just noting. If you want some massive hopium, dude, like there's a massive red vector candle here up at 58K. If you really wanted to be super bullish on life, here. But I'm just a dude with a laptop who draws.
I mean, listen, I think there is a whole lot of stuff that's going on at the moment that plays directly into, or rather is a very good reflection of what happened at the COVID crash. The COVID crash was pretty much, the anniversary was a couple of days ago. And that was when things started turning around, and obviously that news came out with Silicon Valley Bank and then all the other banks that were essentially really taking a bit of strain. We've got that 164 billion that has now been EFT'd across, electronic transfer across from the Fed to the banks to bail them out. And I think we're going to see more of that. And the more of that we see, this thing could quite easily go to that point. It really is. It almost is like a copy and paste of what happened several years ago. So let's see how it plays out. I mean, it can go either way. We just a couple of guys trying to make sense of the whole thing. Clearly not financial advice, just trying to make sense of this whole thing at the moment. But we are really in a very interesting space from a market perspective. Potential decoupling, I mean, it would be amazing to see that if it is at all possible. But right now it seems like it is. And let's see where we are next week this time.
Yeah, it's mad. It's the thing, you really can't make sense of what's going on, because if you were to look at Credit Suisse, right, they hit an all-time low and then they pump straight back up. And I even put in Discord, it's like, oh, anyone got like the balls to go max long on Credit Suisse right now, because it's going to come back. Like, they're not going to let one of the biggest Swiss, it's not just a bank, dude, it's a Swiss bank. Could you imagine the smell if one of the biggest Swiss banks in the world failed? Switzerland ain't letting that happen ever. Period.
100%. And it just once again buys into the inefficiency of the whole system, and how this can continue to happen. I think the biggest issue here is that, there's like that kind of like 10% collateral versus, what it is that you can lend out. And I think these guys really have been playing that game to the absolute maximum. You got a 1.3 trillion debt, and you only have like 130 billion in collateral. It's just asking for trouble. So I don't know, maybe those rules and those laws are going to change, where once again there's also like a huge case for gold. In the 70s they got rid of the old gold standard. It was a bad move. It really was. Gold could land up playing a really big part in this whole thing going forward, and then hopefully Bitcoin gets to play that part as well. I'm hoping that we do return to the narrative of digital gold. It makes sense, but it's not up to us. Everyone needs to see that and that possibility.
Yeah.
I think you had a couple other things that you wanted to cover before we wrap things up. Just from a kind of like the alts and the rest of it. I think you wanted to bring up some stuff from Nansen. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
You want to? Yeah.
So everyone's going to be like wondering like what's going to be catching a bid, right? Now we know that DAOs are going to potentially be getting. So Cryptocom points out that protocols building on Arbi are going to get the Arb token. You break it down, they're going to be looking at DAOs and then things who've actually been productively constructive within the ecosystem. Now, what Nansens done, and I think this is quite cool, is they've kind of like sharing the total transactions and contact logs here. So we can see some of the biggest projects on Arbutrium and how essentially like how much they've like contributed. We all know GMX is like the big daddy, like the kingpin, and then you could say Magic is like the queen, so it props everything up. But it's really interesting to look at what is a DAO, what's been using Arbitrium, and what's actually like been contributing over there, because I think they're the ones that are going to get the primary focus of the airdrop. And like we were saying like at the start, it'll be interesting to see what these projects actually do for like people like you and I, for the bag holders, for the community members. And then like Crypto.com, they're obviously like shilling their own bag, so take everything on screen right now with a pinch of salt. But these are obviously like projects to look into, because they are essentially DAOs. They are essentially going to be taking some of the airdrop. If you go back a little bit more and you kind of paid attention to Eth Denver, this was one of the presentations and it lists out a load of like projects on there. Is this like coincidence or is it a subtle hint or whatever? Like, again, take it with a pinch of salt, who knows? But it's just things to look into on it.
So I think we need to just put a link to that tweet or to those tweets in the video afterwards. I think they're obviously relevant. And then in terms of people pumping their own bags, that's how narratives are formed. When you've got your bigger wallets, they're the trendsetters. Trendsetting is what individuals do within communities, and you got to pay attention to what's being put out there. So I like the way that you've looked at it from that post in terms of who are the bigger players. It's essentially becomes like the heavyweights versus the middleweights versus the lightweights, and those are clearly the heavyweights, and you've got to follow what they're doing, because that's going to allow you to make the decisions around them. So it's all about that.
And I mean, everyone looks at charts. Like, I don't really have anything that I show. Like, I don't have. But it's just interesting to look at something like Umami, right? Umami, max FUD, obviously like caught a bid. Now that they're going through like new DAO structure, caught another bid. GMX, the kingpin. Just look at the way that's started to like really just chat along. So Spar like yesterday. So I was having a look at this yesterday. Oh look, my notification just pumped. So Bitcoin up over 26,200. But look, Spar
so
here.
It's actually 26,300. So
pumping. Look at that. I mean, look, Spar caught a bid. You can tell it caught a bid probably because it was so down in the trenches. It's got a long way to go. I know people's favorites are things like Jones. I mean, look at that, man. Mate, if I only like flicked back on this chart, like, look at that beauty. Everyone loves a bit of magic.
I mean, I think Dan, what's really important about what it is that you are reflecting upon now is that Bitcoin is chatting. The alts haven't started running yet. As soon as Bitcoin starts chilling, what do you think is going to happen, sir? It's going to be insane. That's all I have to say. This weekend could potentially be really big for alts. In light of what kind of like the historical context of what's happened, I think we're going to have a big weekend for alts. You know, a lot of people talk about weekends aren't great for trading. Weekends are really tough, and they are. But I think liquidity is going to be deployed. I think we're going to see it during the course of today. And I'm predicting a big weekend, like a really big weekend.
Massive weekend. I mean, BNB absolutely flying, Phantom flying.
Yeah, everything's flying right now. And they haven't even started. They're flying. Let's bring up the Bitcoin dominance chart, please, just to finish off today's show, just to put it all into context, because the Bitcoin dominance chart is the ultimate ruler of the roost. Yes, it's a meme. We know it is, but we also know it isn't, because right now, Daddy's in charge.
On the 4 hour.
I haven't looked at this chart in possibly 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what I expected to see.
I remember I had charted this up ages ago, and I'd left a massive W on here, like literally from here to the bottom, up, bang.
Literally. Literally the biggest W you've ever seen.
I mean, look at that. Look at the way like Bitcoin is like chadding right the way. Now, like for this, if you are looking from a TA point of view, this like 48% zone, that's where you want to be looking. And the fact that this is where we've gotten up to in the past, so here, I wouldn't be surprised if we move the hammer up a little bit, that we do get into that 48% zone, because that is huge. That is just like big daddy, big baby, like just moving.
I think potentially, I mean, it could easily just continue going up to that 48, like really, and not give alts any kind of opportunity. In fact, that might land up being the more likely outcome here. But if it does chill, then kind of like the 4 and 5% that we're seeing on alts right now across the board are going to land up being 15 to 25% moves over the weekend.
Look at that.
So right now, obviously very bullish. The bulls are definitely in charge, and we know why. There's no mystery. And now the question is, you know, does the FUD continue across traditional finance? If it does, then Bitcoin's going to go to 48% dominance. If it chills, if the Fed manages to put out some fires before the close of business today, Bitcoin will chill and alts will fly. That's my prediction.
Wow. I agree. Look at the RSI, man.
It's so cool to actually be having a conversation around bullish scenarios, as opposed to, I wonder if we're going to see 18K again, bro, or like 17K. We're not. We really are in an upward. We just broke the 200 moving average. I think we've just gone above it for the first time in ages. We've broken the range above 25,500. We haven't seen this since May 2022, bro.
Mm-hmm. And we literally, like, dude, before we came on air, we were talking about Stacks. Stacks is now up almost 20%.
Yeah, Stacks is one of those outliers that's kind of saying, I got my own agenda. There's a Bitcoin layer 2 here that's in the making, and we love Bitcoin, and the market loves Bitcoin, and we want more of it. So let's go. Stacks is essentially your confirmation of said like assumptions that have been made, you know, from an altcoin perspective.
And if you want to like a little bit of quick TA, we are heavily on resistance here. So bonked it 1, 2, 3, broke down here like this. Maybe wait for the confirmation, pull back, and then fly. Like in my mind, just looking at that, I'd be price targeting. And if you're using fibs, you know, take the high over here, crash it down to low. I would be looking at somewhere up here as like if Bitcoin and the narrative is Bitcoin for longer, then, you know, I don't see why you couldn't get at least 1.4 out of it. It's huge,
Dan,
man.
in terms of that retest, we've already had the retest, right? Or the test was the one next to it, right? And then it went down again. So it went down, so it retested, and then it's essentially went back. It's going back up again. Are we now looking at a second?
Yeah.
Look. A second attempt at breaking that. It looks like it's going to do it, man. Look, it's kind of like right in the middle of it. It hasn't rejected. It rejected You're on the hourly now or the daily? The daily. It
This is
rejected 2
daily.
days ago. You see that it's rejected 2 days ago. Interesting, man. It really is. This is an interesting chart, interesting play here.
Yeah. Look at all these like stopping candles, like boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. If we can just break and
If
go.
we break that, it's gonna fly. It really will.
Wow. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Bitcoin is doing something. And if you ever doubted Bitcoin in the past when it was going down, like now is not the time to doubt it, because this
Yeah.
is proof that regardless of all the Bitcoin FUD that is out there, Bitcoin still is the king of crypto right now.
It's so cool to see, dude. I'm so stoked to see it doing what it's doing. Let's see how the weekend goes. We'll obviously reflect upon today's session next week. Yeah, we'll see you guys out there. Please like and subscribe. We really do appreciate that. It goes a long way. So just hit it. Here's to continuation of what we've seen over the last few days. Dan, let's not lose our minds too much, and hopefully,
Mate, no, this is non-social advice. Cancel your plans, watch the charts, because something could definitely happen. And on that
yeah,
bombshell, Bitcoin, baby. Let's go.
let's go. Take care, everyone. We'll see you guys soon. Appreciate you guys. All the best.